One of the best-selling albums ever produced, Rumours, was produced by Stevie Nicks and Fleetwood Mac. Globally, their songs were at the top of the charts. Together, they took a globe tour. Their names were chanted by fans. Then everything changed one night. She's given them hundreds of opportunities already. She was so forgiving, but there is a breaking point for everyone. After 40 years, hers arrived. She no longer wants to be on the same stage with them. And the backstory of this choice might surprise you. On May 26, 1948, Stevie Nicks was born in Phoenix, Arizona. Stephanie Lynn Nicks was her true name. However, as a little child, she was unable to pronounce Stephanie correctly. Rather, she said TD, which quickly became into Stevie. It became stuck. No one could have predicted that this adorable moniker would become well-known worldwide. Music was a part of Stevie's life from the beginning. She was attracted to music even as a newborn. Her true church was music, even if her family was devout, and her grandfather, A.J., was the first to mentor her in it. Nicks, although he wasn't well known, he sang in pubs and pool halls while traveling by rail and performing country music. He earned money by playing pool as well. He trained Stevie to sing duets with him when she was just 4 years old. Are You Mine was their first joint song, and in a sense, she truly did become her own song. She began performing in front of an audience at the age of 5. She even had a guitar made by her granddad himself. Later on, Stevie said that he was adept at creating songs but not a very good guitarist. Oddly enough, she would also use that precise description of herself in the future. The family was kept afloat by her father's employment with Greyhound. They didn't spend much time in one location. Stevie was raised in California, Texas, Utah, Arizona, and New Mexico. Every time she made a new acquaintance, she had to say goodbye to them. Her mother assured her that there will always be a better home and advised her to establish friends quickly. Stevie never stayed static, feeling like a nomad. It made sense when she referred to herself as a nomad in one of her songs years later. She was adaptable because of her lifestyle. It helped her become ready for the ever-changing world of music. Her first guitar was a great present from her parents on her 16th birthday. It was a Goya, and at the time it was very expensive, roughly $1,000. Today that would be almost $9,000. Her parents purchased the guitar even though she had only been taking lessons for 6 weeks when her teacher moved for Spain. Sitting in her room on her 16th birthday, Stevie composed her first original song. I've Loved and I've Lost was the title. It was about her best friend being chosen by a boy she loved. The lyrics were straightforward but emotionally charged, and Stevie sensed it deep within after finishing that song. She wanted to spend the rest of her life doing this. After that day, her family knew not to bother her any time she had music playing in her room, not even for supper. Stevie was more than just a songwriter, she also paid attention to them. She once received 150 vinyl recordings from her grandfather that included songs by Martha Reeves, the Shangri-Las, and the Shirelles. She adored the pop and R&B sounds of the 1960s. She joined a band named The Changing Times while she was a high school student in Southern California. The Moms and Papas served as inspiration for her first official group. The most significant event, however, was when her family relocated to Palo Alto. For her final year, Stevie switched to Menlo Atherton High School. That night in 1966, Stevie Nicks had no intention of meeting anybody remarkable. She was just 18, a senior in high school, and had just moved to Menlo Atherton, California. She attended a religious gathering on a Wednesday mostly for social reasons. Then she caught sight of him. California Dreamin' is played on a guitar by a 17-year-old girl with curly hair and deep blue eyes. Lindsay Buckingham was his name. Stevie approached and began to sing along without giving it any thought. Her voice was a wonderful match for his. There was only one song in one instance. However, that spark would permanently alter their lives. Following that evening, they didn't speak much. It took a whole year for their paths to meet once more. Lindsay played in a psychedelic rock band with a problem called Fritz. 2 of their vocalists had just left. He thought about the church girl with the eerie voice. He invited Stevie to join him over the phone. Yes, she replied. They played side by side, not as lovers, from 1967 until 1971. but as fellow musicians. They opened for industry heavyweights like Jimi Hendrix and Janis Joplin at storied San Francisco venues. Stevie took in all the magic she could from the stage. Always prepared, she studied speech communication off stage at San Jose State University. She would become an English teacher if music didn't work. We both feel that we would have gotten married and remained in Los Angeles if we hadn't gone from San Francisco. We also think that we would still be well known. However, the band disbanded. When Fritz split up in 1971, everything changed. Now that they were not part of the ensemble, Stevie and Lindsay made the decision to continue playing together. The connection abruptly changed. They fell in love. With her father's okay, Stevie left college early and decided to go to Los Angeles with Lindsay. However, Lindsay contracted mononucleosis just as they were about to go. It took them over a year to move. Stevie remained and looked after him. They composed songs, created harmonies, and developed the sound that would eventually make them famous during those sleepy, silent months. In late 1972, they eventually arrived in Los Angeles. Buckingham Nicks, their debut album, was released in 1973. It was audacious. It was uncooked. They were partially naked on the cover, which Stevie subsequently regretted but felt compelled to do. Despite being sincere and intimate, the music was a failure. Over 40,000 copies were sold. Critics did not find it impressive. The label gave up. Stevie found herself cleaning houses all of a sudden, and earning a living by working as a waitress at Bob's Big Boy. She cleaned producer Keith Olsen's house for $50 a week. When Lindsay could, he took studio jobs. They had no money. They lived together in a one-bedroom flat. The meals were inexpensive. Whatever they could afford, macaroni, tuna. Even though their love was put to the test and strained, music managed to keep it intact. Then a turn of events occurred. Mick Fleetwood entered a California studio. Around the end of 1974, Frozen Love, a song by the obscure duo Buckingham Nicks, was played for him by producer Keith Olsen. Fleetwood couldn't stop listening to the music, even though it was over 7 minutes long. The instrument astonished him. It couldn't have come at a better time. Fleetwood Mac needs a new guitarist, because they recently lost theirs. On December 31st, Fleetwood gave Lindsay Buckingham a call that same evening. Buckingham declined his offer of a band place, not without Stevie. They worked together as a team. Fleetwood had the option to turn away, but he chose to accept them both. The history of music was altered by that moment. That evening, they had supper together at a Mexican restaurant in Los Angeles. Fleetwood, John McVie, and Christine McVie were seated on one side. Stevie Nicks and Buckingham, on the other hand. It was an odd sight. After years of lineup changes, the band was worn out and burned out. Lindsay and Stevie had no money. They were barely living after their record failed. But at that table, something clicked. Stevie's style appealed to Christine. The sound of Lindsay appealed to Fleetwood. They made the decision to give it a go. They began practicing a few weeks later. The true magic started at that point. Rhiannon and Landslide were the two tunes that Stevie brought with him. They were unlike anything anyone in the band had ever heard. Rhiannon had a ghostly, eerie presence. Dressed in black, Stevie would twirl across the stage. She sung as if she were enchantment. It was been compared to seeing an exorcism by Mick Fleetwood. It was even more intimate with Landslide. She wrote it while contemplating whether or not to give up music while gazing at Colorado's snow-capped mountains. Those tunes have a profound effect. They felt like the truth, not simply a nice sound. They also brought emotion to the band, which they had never had before, encased in verse. The latest album by Fleetwood Mac was released on July 11, 1975. It took some time to blow up. Although it started at number 183 on the Billboard chart, it remained there. For 57 consecutive weeks, it rose steadily until September 1976, when it eventually peaked at number 1. They were unable to quit playing it. Everyone hit it. Stevie's ethereal words, Lindsay's frantic guitar, and Christine's gentle melodies. Brennan, Say You Love Me, Over My Head, Landslide. In the United States alone, the album sold more than 7 million copies by 2018. Although it took some time to gain traction in the UK, it finally became quite popular. The band Fleetwood Mac had changed, grown, and improved. More robust, but messier as well. The strain increased along with their notoriety. Stevie was rising to fame. Her voice, appearance and energy were all over. However, celebrity has its drawbacks. She and Lindsay's friendship was deteriorating. After years of being together, they were now constantly at odds. John McVie and Christine McVie, who were married when the new lineup began, were also divorcing. What about Mick Fleetwood? After learning that his wife was unfaithful, he began an affair with Stevie. Despite the pandemonium, it all contributed to the music in some way. They began documenting Rumours around 1976. She adored the pop and R&B sounds of the 1960s. She joined a band named The Changing Times while she was a high school student in Southern California. The Moms and Papas served as inspiration for her first official group. The most significant event, however, was when her family relocated to Palo Alto. For her final year, Stevie switched to Menlo Atherton High School. That night in 1966, Stevie Nicks had no intention of meeting anybody remarkable. She was just 18, a senior in high school, and had just moved to Menlo Atherton, California. She attended a religious gathering on a Wednesday mostly for social reasons. Then she caught sight of him. California Dreamin' is played on a guitar by a 17-year-old girl with curly hair and deep blue eyes. Lindsay Buckingham was his name. Stevie approached and began to sing along without giving it any thought. Her voice was a wonderful match for his. There was only one song in one instance. However, that spark would permanently alter their lives. Following that evening, they didn't speak much. It took a whole year for their paths to meet once more. Lindsay played in a psychedelic rock band with a problem called Fritz. Two of their vocalists had just left. He thought about the church girl with the eerie voice. He invited Stevie to join him over the phone. Yes, she replied. They played side by side, not as lovers, from 1967 until 1971, but as fellow musicians. They opened for industry heavyweights like Jimi Hendrix and Janis Joplin at storied San Francisco venues. Stevie took in all the magic she could from the stage. Always prepared, she studied speech communication off stage at San Jose State University. She would become an English teacher if music didn't work. We both feel that we would have gotten married and remained in Los Angeles if we hadn't gone from San Francisco. We also think that we would still be well known. However, the band disbanded. When Fritz split up in 1971, everything changed. Now that they were not part of the ensemble, Stevie and Lindsay made the decision to continue playing together. The connection abruptly changed. They fell in love. With her father's okay, Stevie left college early and decided to go to Los Angeles with Lindsay. However, Lindsay contracted mononucleosis just as they were about to go. It took them over a year to move. Stevie remained and looked after him. They composed songs, created harmonies, and developed the sound that would eventually make them famous during those sleepy, silent months. In late 1972, they eventually arrived in Los Angeles. Buckingham Nicks, their debut album, was released in 1973. It was audacious. It was uncooked. They were partially naked on the cover, which Stevie subsequently regretted but felt compelled to do. Despite being sincere and intimate, the music was a failure. Over 40,000 copies were sold. Critics did not find it impressive. The label gave up. Stevie found herself cleaning houses all of a sudden, and earning a living by working as a waitress at Bob's Big Boy. She cleaned producer Keith Olsen's house for $50 a week. When Lindsay could, he took studio jobs. They had no money. They lived together in a one-bedroom flat. The meals were inexpensive. Whatever they could afford, macaroni, tuna. Almost a year would pass. Back then, the sessions cost about $1 million. Now they cost almost $5 million. They were arguing, sobbing, and screaming before entering the studio and writing some of the best songs ever. They were not only composers, each of them was writing to the other. Shacking up is all you want to do is one of the punches in Lindsay's song Your Own Way. Stevie was enraged. She wanted to murder him every time she sang that on stage. "Dreams, soft, smooth but deadly," was her reply. Then, in the summer of 1981, the twist occurred. Belladonna, Stevie Nicks' debut solo album, has just been released. It debuted at number 12, the highest position since Stevie Wonder's Hotter Than July, in its first week on the charts. That was significant on its own, but it went beyond. It reached the top spot by September. Even Fleetwood Mac's Tusk, which had just peaked at number 4, was outperformed. The album achieved platinum status within 3 months after its release. It achieved quadruple platinum status by 1990. Ultimately, it sold more than 5 million copies in the United States. Belladonna rose to the top with 4 tracks. Tom Petty's song Stop Draggin' My Heart Around peaked at number 3. Don Henley's Leather and Lace peaked at number 6. The Edge of 17 rose to the 11th position. They arrived at number 32 when the glitter faded. The record was described by Stevie as a dream. She claimed that although it wounded her heart, it gave her the willpower to pursue love. The album was more than merely a hit. She was admitted to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame as a result, and she took pride in it, not only for herself but also for other women worldwide. Her distinctive sound, Belladonna, was the first of something different. 2 backing vocalists who were always at her side provided it, Lori Perry and Sharon Solani. After relocating to Los Angeles with Lindsay Buckingham, Stevie met Lori in 1971. In 1977, she happened upon Sharon as she was performing in a Hawaiian bar. Stevie claimed that she didn't even realize that Sharon was so engrossed in the song that she watched her sing for 30 seconds without blinking. Stevie cherished that. She desired for their voices to respond to one another in a call-and-response fashion. She desired Crosby, Stills and Nash to be portrayed by a woman. She referred to them as her vocal basis over the years, and even dedicated an album to them saying, "To Loretta and Sharona for never leaving me." Stevie released The Wild Heart 2 years after Belladonna. In June 1983, it arrived. Shortly after the Mirage Tour by Fleetwood Mac, her best friend Robin Anderson had passed away the previous year, and she was still in mourning. Stevie was altered by that loss, and it influenced the record. For 7 weeks, The Wild Heart remained at number 5 on the Billboard 200. In just 3 months it achieved platinum status, and by 1993, it had sold more than 2 million copies. She invited well-known people. For her, Tom Petty composed a song. On a tune, Mick Fleetwood performed. Prince even contributed an uncredited synthesizer section to Stand Back. She briefly followed rock in 1985. Within a month, it peaked at number 12 and became platinum. In the US, it sold 1 million copies, and in the UK, more than 100,000. Talk to Me and more similar songs reached number 4. Has Anyone Ever Written Anything for You became a concert favorite, while I Can't Wait peaked at number 16. Even though it didn't sell as well as her previous albums, it was still one of the top 50 albums of 1986. Her solo journey was significantly influenced by Tom Petty. He nearly handed her the song Insider, but ultimately chose to retain it. Instead, he emailed her Stop Dragging My Heart Around, and it became a huge success. I'll Run to You, he penned later, specifically for her second album. Petty was previously cited by Stevie as her favorite songwriter. There was a history to her duet, Leather and Lace. Jesse Coulter and Waylon Jennings were supposed to utilize it, but they never did. It became another success once Stevie and Don Henley recorded it. Large audiences watched Stevie perform. In 1983, one of the largest took place at the U.S. Festival. There were more than 650,000 people present. In the same year she sang Stand Back and Nightbird on Saturday Night Live. 41 years later, in 2023, she made a comeback to the show. However, there was a cost associated with both being a member of Fleetwood Mac and a solo artist. At one point, Stevie claimed that going back and forth was a godsend, but it also exhausted her. Things were collapsing by the late 1980s. She was prescribed Klonopin by a psychiatrist. It was meant to keep her composed. Rather, it almost destroyed her life. Addiction in a bottle is what she termed it. It cost her 8 years. Her inventiveness vanished. She lost her passion. She despised her appearance and put on weight. Worst of all, she was unable to write. She quit Fleetwood Mac in 1993. Her skull was gashed as she fell into a fireplace. That was the tipping moment. She spent 47 days checking herself into a detox facility. It was cruel. Her hair went gray. She peeled her skin. Her legs hurt all the time. It was the toughest thing she had ever done, she said. She knew she had to do it though. There was no quick cut. Cocaine existed before Klonopin. Although she had begun in her early 70s, it had gotten out of hand by the late 70s. Her nose has a hole in it. The medicine was costing her millions of dollars. Crew workers had to watch her throughout performances to make sure she didn't tumble off stage. She went on a 48-hour drug binge one night and neglected to remove her contact lenses. She had to perform with bandaged eyes since her corneas were so damaged. Her drug addiction escalated to a hazardous degree while she was with Eagles player Joe Walsh. They would not sleep for days at a time. In the end, Walsh had to go for the benefit of both of them. A plastic surgeon warned her in 1986 that the following line may be fatal. She checked into the Betty Ford Center at that point. She avoided cocaine because of that. But she never forgiven the doctor who gave her Klonopin afterwards. He robbed me of years that I could have spent writing, loving and living, she added. Stevie claims that she made it through everything by herself. She says, I saved me, a lot. She checked herself into a rehabilitation center. She persevered despite the agony. She didn't want sympathy from anyone. She didn't seek assistance. Tom Petty, however, was concerned about her. At one point he said, I wouldn't have been shocked if the phone had rang and they said she died. She was so addicted. Nevertheless, Stevie acknowledged that she had moments when she didn't want to tidy up. She claimed she didn't want to get off and referred to it as the white horse. Her artwork deteriorated. She detested Klonopin's alteration of her songs. According to her, authors want drama, emotion, and suffering. And all of it was eliminated by the medicine. Street Angels, which came out in 1994, felt hollow to her because of this. When she made it, she didn't give a damn. She felt numb. There was no longer any fire. It wasn't a successful record. She almost gave up playing music. However, she slowly returned after detoxing. She admitted to occasionally using marijuana while writing. Although she takes caution, it is the one thing she permits herself to do, and it aids in her creation. Even Stevie Nicks later referred to her 1983 choice as a horrible, terrible mistake. Robin, her closest friend, recently passed away from leukemia. Matthew, Robin's newborn son, was born 2 days before to her death. Stevie married Kim Anderson, Robin's husband, when she was grieving. They had no romantic feelings. Both of them were broken. They believed that getting married may help them get over the suffering. However, it didn't. Only 3 months passed. They ceased communicating following the divorce. Stevie contacted Matthew years later. She covered his education expenses. He has a daughter after growing up. He gave her the name Robin. Grandma Stevie was born. Stevie received breast implants in 1976, when Fleetwood Mac was at its most famous. It was fashionable. Everyone assured her that it was secure. She took them at face value. She shared their home for almost 2 decades. Her health then deteriorated in 1994. She was constantly exhausted. According to doctors, it was Epstein-Barr virus. She ignored their insistence that the implants had nothing to do with anything. She had them taken off. Inside her they were broken. I'm living proof they're not safe, she added later. The weariness persisted. It returned again and again. At times it struck her so forcefully that she was unable to sing. She continued to perform, nevertheless. She was among the first celebrities to criticize silicone implants. Stevie always gave off the impression that she was from another planet. She thought that in a previous life, she had been decapitated. Her ballet instructor also thought so. She was unable to tilt her head back at salons because of this. It has to be held by someone. Fear was the source of her style. She chose flowing black clothing in 1975 because she felt apprehensive on stage. 18 pounds of chiffon, velvet and lace. I'll be really sexy, and nobody will know who I really am, she remarked. Her appearance changed but remained enchanted. 1980s shoulder pads, angelic whites, shawls and top hats. She was referred to as a witch when she sang Rhiannon. She received letters. A few were frightening. She was terrified. Later on though, she declared, "I'm all grown up now. I have no fear." Christine McVie was asked if she was okay with another woman joining Fleetwood Mac when Stevie joined the band in 1975. Christine immediately responded, "Yes." They clicked right away. Stevie was dreamy and flowing. Christine was cool and grounded. They never got into a fight. They didn't ever compete. "She sings to me on stage every night," Christine once said. Stevie would glance directly at her while singing, "I can still see your bright eyes." Their bond was that. However, on November 30th, 2022, everything changed. There was no longer Christine McVie. Stevie was unaware that her best pal was ill at all. It was just a few days prior that she learned. It was too late by then. Stevie was advised not to go by Christine's relatives. "She might not be here tomorrow," they added. Thus Stevie remained at home. She was never able to bid farewell. Christine passed away simultaneously from heart issues, cancer, and a stroke. Stevie had desired to perform a final song for her. Later she joked that it would have accelerated her death, attempting to conceal the suffering. However, that time never arrived. Then Stevie stated it rather plainly. Without Christine, Fleetwood Mac could not continue. She claimed there was no reason to. Their connection went beyond music. There was more to it. Since 1975, they had been at one another's sides without ever fighting or drifting away. When they reconnected, it seemed as though no time had passed, even though months had gone by. Stevie referred to Christine as her dearest friend and musical soulmate. Nothing felt quite right without her. The band's drummer Mick Fleetwood even came clean about it. At the Grammys he declared, "The line in the sand has been drawn. We're finished." Stevie would have to act as though the band's heart hadn't quit beating in order to keep it going, and she had no intention of doing so. "I went to perform in some insane gigs at the start of 2012. In all honesty though, Stevie had been removing himself long before Christine died. She was already fed up with the contemporary music industry. She declined to record another Fleetwood Mac album back in 2017. The return was insufficient, the energy was excessive, and the expenditure was excessive. "We are no longer 40, she added. "It would take a year to record. Even more would be needed for touring. Additionally, creating new music didn't make sense in a world where people stream for free." She missed the day when albums were purchased, and songs had deeper meaning. She now thought their labor would just be lost in the cacophony. 2003 saw the release of their most recent album. Then she'd had enough. It would be ignored, she remarked. That was followed by Lindsay Buckingham. Although they had been together since high school, their relationship had devolved into a conflict. In 2018, everything went haywire. Stevie spoke following a performance at a charitable gig. Lindsay grinned. That was the last straw. Their manager called him a few days later. Stevie was informed that he would never want to perform with you again. Stevie threatened to leave if the band didn't comply. She never turned back after they picked her. She made it known in 2024. "I offered him almost 300 million opportunities." She remembered hearing her parents in her mind, and her voice trembled. They said it was time for a divorce. Lindsay and Stevie hardly talked when they reconnected at Christine's memorial. Stevie Nicks created history in addition to music. She became the first woman to be inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame twice on March 29, 2019. In 1998, the first time was with Fleetwood Mac. She stood by herself the second time. Not only for herself, but also for all women who have ever taken up microphones. She uttered what everyone knew, but had never said aloud, while gazing out into the throng. There have been 2 inductions, of 22 guys. No women. She kicked down the door at that same time. She sang alongside Don Henley that evening. Harry Styles was standing next to her. He referred to her as timeless. 1 in 7 individuals, he added, dressed up like her for Halloween. It's more than simply celebrity. Legacy is that, too, Furthermore, this was not an ego-related event for Stevie. It was about obtaining the recognition that rock women had been denied for many years. However, this tale began long before that evening. She contributed to the creation of one of the best-selling albums ever, Rumours, back in 1977. Tens of millions were sold. It was named the seventh greatest album of all time by Rolling Stone. Belladonna, her solo debut, was as impactful. Edge of 17, which Beyoncé subsequently sampled for Bootylicious, was the result. Stevie influenced mainstream culture, in addition to inspiring vocalists. Her songs were honest, beautiful, and audacious. She penned Dreams, Fleetwood Mac's lone #1 song, Rhiannon, after reading a tale about a Welsh deity, and Landslide, when she was 27. In the midst of turmoil and heartache in the US, she continued to top the charts even as a solo performer. Her most cherished songs, including duets with Don Henley and Tom Petty, were included in her Stand Back compilation, which was made public during her Hall of Fame moment. Fans adored it. It was praised by critics. Finally, the industry was forced to make the statement. She did more than just play in a great band. The legend was her. After working for decades, most artists slacked down. Not Stevie. As if nothing had changed, she is still performing on stage, at the age of 76, while sporting the same black boots and shawls. Arenas are still sold out by her. The strength is still there, even if her voice is quieter now. She discussed her late bandmate Christine McVie at a 2023 performance. She related how Christine had advised her to sing when she was feeling down. You will constantly feel uplifted by the audience. During a Fleetwood Mac reunion in 1997, she had one of her most memorable moments. She looked directly at Lindsay Buckingham while she performed Silver Springs. It was a reckoning, not only a show. Later, that video went viral on TikTok, containing more than 2.5 million likes. Gen Z was unable to turn away. Her influence extends beyond music. She shaped a whole period, an appearance, and a mood. Stevie transformed chiffon, lace, and moonlight stages into a brand before there was such a thing as branding. Her look became bohemian chic, and celebrities, fashion designers, and regular people all adopted it. At one point, she was charged with witchcraft due to her attire. However, she incorporated it into her magic rather than resisting it. It was impossible for other artists not to follow her example. Vanessa Carlton, Sheryl Crow, and Taylor Swift. Eminem even declared his love for Rhiannon at one point. The thing with Stevie is that she is not only a rock star, she's everywhere. She was taken into the country by the girls, who covered her Landslide. She accepted Destiny's Child's invitation to appear in their video. She claimed that she felt like she belonged while she was around them.